Let's talk about something that radically changed my life for the good, adoption, today on Brett Ray's Tuesday Tiny Tips. All right, this is a family tip. It's about something that has radically changed my life for the good, and that something is adoption. I've been to the country of Haiti 7 times, and one of the times I was getting ready to go, my little son at the time, Joshua, stopped me in my tracks and he asked me this question: "Hey, Papa, when are we going to adopt an orphan?" I was really shocked by that question because I couldn't ever remember really carrying on a conversation with Josh about our family adopting, but here it was. When are we going to adopt an orphan? So I looked at him and I gave him the best spiritual answer I could. I said, well, if God ever asks us to do that, Josh, we'll do it. And he seemed to be content with that, and he said, okay, and he walked away. A few days later, I was in Haiti. I was visiting a hospital to the poorest of the poor, and I went in a room marked maternity. I walked into the room, and all these young moms burst into smiles and began to ask me in Creole to come see their babies. And after greeting many of them, I noticed there was a girl, a teenage girl, laying on a bed with her baby behind her head. She was looking off into the distance. She was not smiling like the other women, and she looked so incredibly sad. I walked up to her and I decided that my goal for the day was to try to make her smile. So I said hello to her, and my interpreter said hello, and she, without making eye contact with me, said hello back. And I asked her how old her baby was, and she said her baby was a couple days old. And I asked her what her baby's name was, and she said she hasn't given her a name yet. And so I said, well, would you like me to help you find a name for her? And so she, without making eye contact, she has not looked at me yet. She looked away and said, I guess. And I said, okay. So I decided on the name Belle. And so we called her Belle, which means beautiful. And this girl just looks so incredibly sad. And I said, well, do you think I could hold your baby? And she said, I don't care. And so I picked up the baby and I started doing my little baby rock. And then I just thought, wow, I'm really not reaching this girl. So I asked her, could I sing to your baby? And she looked at me, made eye contact with me, and she smiled and she said, I guess. And so I began to sing to her baby. Now, I'm not a singer, so I began to sing just about any tune I could come up with. And when I did that, the women and the other young moms in the room began to just get excited and to talk and to say, listen, 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 and Creole, listen to him sing. And so they were all kind of getting a kick out of it. And I was rocking the baby back and forth and singing to the baby. And then I went to lay the baby down. And when I did, this young mom, 19 years old, grabbed me by the arm and she looked intensely in my eyes and she started saying something in Creole very, very fast. I didn't know what she was saying, but my interpreter began to speak quickly back to her. And I said, Betsy, I'd like to be in on this conversation. And Betsy said, I'll get this. And they were talking back and forth to each other. And this young 19-year-old girl was so frantic as she was not letting go of my arm. And Betsy was talking to her in Creole. And finally I said, Betsy, I really want to know what's going on. Betsy said, I'm sorry. She said, she's begging you over and over again to please adopt her baby and take her baby girl to a safe place with you. I looked the girl in the eye, and as I was looking straight in her eyes and she was holding onto my arm and not letting go, I don't want to exaggerate here, I mean this from the bottom of my heart, I felt like I was looking Jesus in the eyes and he was asking me this question: when, Brett Ray, will you adopt an orphan? I looked at Betsy and I said, hey, this Betsy, my interpreter, I said, hey, listen, I want you to tell her that I'll be back. I want to go talk to somebody. And Betsy said, are you sure? And I said, yes, tell her I'll be back. So Betsy told her, he will be back. Let go of his arm. He will come back. So I had Betsy take me to her mom. Her mom was the head of the hospital. And Betsy's mom, I sat down with Betty and we talked about the situation. And I said, Betty, the reason that I'm letting this really sink in is because my son Joshua just a couple days ago asked me when I was going to adopt an orphan, and I told him if God ever asked me to do that, I would do that. And I feel like maybe God's asking me to do that. And it's interesting. Betty said, I'll look into it, Brad, and I'll see if this girl has any other family and what's going on. But I want you to know, if this little baby girl doesn't work out, there are lots of little babies here in Haiti that need homes. And I thought to myself, well, if this baby doesn't work out, it probably won't work out at all, because Carol and I haven't even talked about this. And if this baby doesn't work out, it probably won't work out. So I didn't tell Betty that. I just said, thank you very much. Would you look into it for me? So then Betsy said to me, you should meet John McCool. John is the head of one of the adoption agencies here in Haiti, and he's going to be at a basketball game tonight. And so my friend Kelly, who I had been visiting there in Haiti, who was a teacher at the school I was speaking at, she said, you're going to love John. He's a great guy. You should definitely talk to him. So that night during halftime at the basketball game at the high school, I talked to John and I introduced myself. And John knew of me. He had heard of me because his kids had come home from school and talked about the speaking that I did in their chapel. And John said, well, Brett, I want you to know something. I'll look into this little baby, but if this little baby doesn't work out, there are lots of little babies here in Haiti that need a home. And I said, okay. And I thought, wow, that's the second time I've heard that today. After the game, I went to the host home I was staying in and had dinner, and people were sitting all around the table enjoying this meal. And Margaret, the woman whose house it was, she said, Brett, tell me about your day. And I said, well, you're not going to believe what happened at the hospital. And I told her. And Margaret looked at me, and I kid you not, nobody had talked to her about this. This is the first time she had heard the story. She said, well, Brett, I want you to know that if this little baby doesn't work out, there's lots of little babies here in Haiti that need a home. And I was like, wow, I keep hearing the same thing over and over again. So I wrote my wife an email. I was not able to call her. I wrote an email and I told her about the whole story. And so then a few days later, I finished my speaking and I flew home. When I got home, I was giving some presents out to the kids that I had brought from the airport. And when I did this, I looked at Carol and I said, hey, did you get my email? And she said, I did. And I said, tell me about that. And she said, well, I was almost certain she was going to say, yes, I did. I read it. And the answer is no. We have, we have 4 kids right now. They're all little. We have our hands full. We can't adopt. But she said this. She said, yes, I read your letter. And she said, I had just gotten back from my friend Carol's house. My wife is Carol and her friend is Carol. She said, I just got back from Carol's house, and, Carol has adopted 2 little girls, Carol and Craig have. And I just asked myself on the way home, God, what would it take for you to get my attention to adopt? And then I read your letter. And Brett, I was just thinking that if this little girl, this little baby doesn't work out, and before she even finished the sentence, tears started streaming down my face. She didn't see me because my back was turned to her and I was listening to her. She was sitting behind me and I was giving gifts to the kids. She said, if this little baby doesn't work out, there are probably lots of little babies in Haiti that need a home. I turned around and the tears were running down my face. Carol got very emotional and she said, what's going on? And I told her the story and she said, oh my goodness. So, long story short, that little girl was not adoptable. Her grandmother wanted to keep that baby. They were afraid that that baby had AIDS, and that wouldn't have been a problem for Carol and I to adopt the baby, but they wouldn't, because of the regulations and stuff, they wouldn't allow us to adopt the baby. But the good news is the grandmother wanted to keep the baby. So that's good news. So we called John and Beth, John McCool, the head of the adoption agency, and we said, well, God's got a hold of our hearts here. We're going to adopt. Do you have any babies for us? And he said, well, actually, let me keep my eyes open, because all the little babies that I have right now are going to good homes. But he said, let me just keep my eyes out. Not too long after that, he sent us the word. He said, I have a little baby girl for you. Would you like me to send you pictures? And I said, no, we don't need pictures. We'll just come and get her. He sent a picture anyway. Carol and I flew to Haiti. On the plane, we made a little video telling Mareah that we were going to meet her very soon. We got to the home that day where she was staying in it was like an orphan home. It's not an orphanage, but it's a home where the babies stay while they're waiting to get adopted out. And we walked into Mareah's room and we picked her up for the very first time, and then we just spent time with her, and they let us the next day take her to the home that we were staying in, and then we finished all the paperwork and she was ours. Today Mareah is one of the most amazing people I have ever met. She's one of the loves of my life, and I just Can't imagine life without her. Adoption has been really hard at times. It's been very hard on Mareah. It's been very hard on Carol and I. It's been a battle at times because Mareah was very broken over the fact that her mom had died of starvation. But as we've worked through things and as we've got on the other side of things, it's amazing. We can't imagine life without Mareah. And today, Mareah is doing awesome. She is an incredible young lady. She's 21 years old as of the making of this video. She's a beautiful, beautiful young lady. She's a manager at a restaurant. She's doing great. And I just am so proud of her. She comes home and she shares with us that she thinks we're a wonderful forever family. On the day that we were taking Mareah home, John and Beth McCool said, "We are the Haiti family and you are the forever family." And Mareah tells us these days that she's so grateful to have a family that loves her and such a wonderful family. And on Christmas Day this year, she told me, she kissed me and I said, "I love you." And she said, "It's so good to be home." And I said, "Of course it is. You belong here." I know adoption isn't for everyone, but adoption has changed our lives. It has not always been easy. Sometimes it's been a very rough road. But in the end, after years of love and telling Mareah there's nothing you can do to push our love away, Mareah said, "I believe that. I finally believe that you guys want me forever." This is Brett Ray from the Tuesday Tiny Tips. I hope this was helpful. Have a great day.